Thank you so much for being here with me today, Bryce. Bryce Sharp is a software engineer at Ookla and is a phenomenal developer, phenomenal human being. He's a speaker. He's helped out at many meetups, and he's just a great vibe to be around. So thank you, honestly, for taking the time to be here with me today, man. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I appreciate it too. Thank you for that kind intro.
Well, let's start at the beginning. Who are you, and what was your way into tech?
Yeah, my name is Bryce Sharp. I'm a software engineer at Ookla. I did graduate from the University of Memphis with a double major in computer science and mathematics. But before that, I was a product of Memphis Public High School. I went to Central High School, and I think my journey in tech really started back then. I had an older brother who was 11 years older who was doing cool things in DOS, and I was like, wow, how does that work? And I was curious about it, and that curiosity just kept getting fed. 2000s, I graduated in 2007, so kind of the like mid 2000s, there were sidekicks, like tech was becoming cooler, but the iPhone hadn't quite hit the scene yet. And so there was still kind of that jock nerd mentality, and I think a lot of my peers really idolized people that I couldn't idolize, and I think that was difficult. So like the coolest people in the school were Jay-Z, who was a rapper, and Michael Jordan, who was a basketball player. And the whole time I kept thinking, this is the right narrative, but these are the wrong role models. And what I mean by that is, I think as minorities, we only see millionaires who look like us, who are in sports or entertainment. And I think people get enamored. I know I definitely did with the idea of sweat equity, where you could go in the basketball court and practice your jumper for 30 hours, and you could come out with just a nice jumper and just hit it every time, and your skills and the time you put in was sweat equity into like your body of work and your capabilities, and then you use those capabilities to profit later. And I really love that idea. I always felt like a hustler, but I always thought, well, the way we were hustling in sports and in music was wrong. I knew so many, this was before SoundCloud, I knew so many people who had a cassette with their tape that never saw the light of day. Confused me back then. And then now, as an adult and as a professional software developer, I realized that I was right. A lot of my peers were saying Jay-Z, Jay-Z is the coolest. Like, he's so rich. Like, he's going to be the guy. And if you look at it now, kids are still saying that. I mean, he's a billionaire. He's a black billionaire, and it's amazing. But Bill Gates is worth 129 times what he is. And I think that reality to me kind of says like, hey, you can only go so far entertaining the masses, and a lot of the people you entertain will not look like you, and you'll have to make creative concessions for that. But if you can provide real hard services in the tech world and have those actual skills and capabilities, they can take you a lot further. And that sweat equity is, and that's where like I wanted to invest my sweat equity, and so I did, and I learned a bunch of programming skills. And in the beginning, it was me just figuring it out. This was kind of like early Stack Overflow, like days when it was harder to acquire information, so you were just kind of trying things out. But then as I grew older, I really got ambitious, and I felt like, hey, I have skills here. I have put in the sweat to have these capabilities, and went out and found freelance clients and people who had a mom and pop cheesecake shop, people who had like a little brick and mortar store, multiple sclerosis benefit called Brewfest. And I did these things for free. And I went and I said, hey, I need the skills, I need the practice. And so I really hustled, and it wasn't like hustling for money, it was hustling for experience and credibility in the industry. And from there, I went and applied for jobs, and my resume day one, like most of it's not on there today. I think there's like a bullet point that says freelancing that kind of just lists them all. But my resume was like 2 pages long with side projects that I had done that, showed my ambition and showed my drive to potential employers, and ultimately landed me a career here.
So you've touched on a couple things that I appreciate, and I can tell you, we grew up in similar backgrounds where the educated weren't really amplified and they weren't really the role models that we had at that time. And it was the musician, the athlete. And so going with that mindset and with the fact that there are a lower percentage of minorities in tech, why do you think minorities can succeed in tech?
I think minorities can make good programmers because we're used to doing more with less. And I think, as a developer, like the less code you write, the less tech debt you have. Probably, like, it's not always less code is a better solution, but being thrifty with your compute cycles and being thrifty with just like your mental processes can help a lot. And also, I think the reality of growing up a minority in America tends to make you not sugarcoat things and helps you get to the real point in the end a little faster. So I definitely think that minorities, like, there should be as many percentage of minorities who are programmers as there are of the majority, right? And that to me is an opportunity issue. And so there's less opportunity in impoverished neighborhoods. There's less computers. There's less internet access. There's less people who know about computers and have internet access. If you're struggling to pay the bills, the internet check is probably the first one to go. And then if you get into some of these impoverished neighborhoods and projects, like, internet access isn't even an option. And so another reason why I think minorities are going to win in tech going forward is because more and more people are going to have access to that. And, it's been amazing what they've done here in Memphis with the Memphis City Schools. I mean, everything went digital, and all of a sudden these neighborhoods that had zero internet access at all, they drive these Wi-Fi hotspot trucks out there, and now these kids have internet at home where they didn't before. And so I think that gap of how much tech access there is going to close, and minorities will benefit from that. And then I think once we get in, the swag and just honestly the charisma and the doing more with less is going to lead to us dominating the industry, honestly.
I completely agree, and I will tell you, we do we have an organization here called GDG Memphis, Google Developers Group Memphis, and that is my main focus is these communities, because one thing that I've noticed, especially in Memphis and other cities, that when people from these communities get the resources, they don't throw it to the side. Instead, they thrive. They literally rise to the occasion, and it truly is a lack of opportunity and a lack of having the learning resources necessary to actually grow into this. And one thing that I always say is I try to be very vocal, and that's why I love this series where I get to interview people like you, is you never know who needs to hear that they're allowed to be in this space. And for me, it took me hearing that I was allowed to be in here to actually know it was possible. It was never talked about when I was growing up. Oh, you can be a developer. It wasn't even on our radar of opportunities. So I love the fact that that's something that you're bringing to the table as well. So I'm going to ask you the one question that I'm asking everybody: what do you think is the future for Black tech?
I mean, Wakanda, I think, like, like, we've talked a lot about how role models weren't there. And I think, seeing T'Challa and seeing this advanced, natural haired African society that, like, is dominating the world and, like, is, better than everything and is, like, the embodiment of what Black excellence can be. I mean, I think we're going to build that. Like, I think we are building that. There's lots of people in our circle that who, like, we have mutual friends who are breaking into this industry and are realizing, wait, it's really nice here. There's a lot of benefits here. We can all work from home. The salaries are really high. The technical skills are not automatable yet, so you're not going to lose your job to, like, self-driving cars. And so I think that there's not a choice between, because these jobs are going to be the future, and that when minorities really gravitate towards that and get in there, we are going to take over and we're going to dominate. And I think another thing I think I should have said earlier about this is, another reason why I think minorities are prone to dominate is because this is hard work. This is a lot of technical skills. You have to learn a lot. You have to spend the time to get these skills. And once you have them, no one can take them from you. But if you grew up easy with a silver spoon in your mouth, you're not necessarily motivated to work as hard as someone who's young and scrappy and who is like, wait, you mean if I just learn enough about this programming language and how to master it, they'll give me how much money to go sit in an office and do what? And it's going to be transformative. So I think that we are going to be a vital piece of minorities are going to be a vital piece of the tech landscape moving forward. We will be the charisma and the swag in a template kind of cookie cutter world where everybody wants to say like, hey, this is best, do it like this, just use, X framework. I'm trying not to endorse anything by name, X framework to do this. And, that will ultimately allow you to be beneficial versus us where it's like, hey, we want these things as cool as our swag, and we want these things to be hip and to solve real world problems that real world people have, and not the like Silicon Valley bubble.
I love that and completely agree. You've touched on so many good points. I feel like this has had to have sparked some inspiration or an idea in someone, and I hope they really take that further and explore it more. Bryce Sharp, software engineer at Ookla, thank you so much for doing this. It was a pleasure having you, and I can't wait to do something similar like this again with you in the future.
Yeah, thank you.